Hi booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading, and welcome to Shaketember 2024. I am joined today by my husband Jason, also a Shaketember host, and his channel is Old Blues Chapter and Verse. Hi, it's editing Kelly. I realized partway through filming this extremely long video that we had never said, hey, by the way, we're going to completely spoil Hamlet. We assume that you know who the characters are, their relationships with each other, what scenes we're referring to in the play, so we provide no explanation. We just assume that you know the story of Hamlet. Maybe you might want to look up a synopsis of Hamlet before watching this, or look at a cast of characters to refresh your memory. But yeah, that is not part of this video. So thanks so much. Enjoy the video. And bye. We are here with kind of a bonus video that we've been working on. We watched 4 film adaptations of Hamlet. 4. We spent a lot of time watching Hamlet.
In a week.
In a week, yes. So here are the productions that we saw. And if you've seen some of our previous discussions of film adaptations, we're gonna say who we thought did the best job of playing certain characters, and we're also going to talk in depth about a few scenes from Hamlet. We watched Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, which came out in 1948 and stars Laurence Olivier and was directed by him. We saw the 1990 Franco Zeffirelli Hamlet, which stars Mel Gibson. And we saw the 1996 Kenneth Branagh Hamlet, which was directed and stars Kenneth Branagh. And we saw a filmed stage production from 2015 by, it stars Maxine Peake, so a female Hamlet. And I apologize, I forgot to write down the director's name, so I'll put that down below. Those were the 4 film adaptations and interpretations of Hamlet. First, we're going to start with some of the actors that we thought gave the best performances for a few different roles. We couldn't do all of them.
Yeah, so we chose what we felt were arguably the most significant characters from the play. And yeah, we're going to talk about who we thought from production to production, from film to film, which performances in those roles we liked best.
Jason, who was your favorite Hamlet?
Okay, so let me start by saying as well that we haven't talked about this
yes,
yet.
That has been the hardest part. We have no idea.
Yeah. So who was my favorite Hamlet of the 4 Hamlets? My favorite Hamlet of the 4 Hamlets is Mel Gibson, which I know is an unpopular choice among Hamlet fans. In part, I suppose, because Mel Gibson's turned out to be crazy, and just a wackadoodle. But I think he does such a good job. Another interesting thing about Mel Gibson in this role is when you watch the special features on the DVD, Mel Gibson talks about how he feels like he never played Hamlet, right? Because they cut so much of the play out, right? They cut about half of the play out, and then they, of course, didn't shoot in continuity, and so he doesn't feel like he ever really played the role. But for somebody who doesn't feel like he played the role, man, he plays that role so well. There's just something really. Mel Gibson has a really great sense of humor as an actor, I think, and that comes out in places. But there's also just something really, really muscular about his Hamlet for me. And there are these wonderful moments of tenderness in his Hamlet. I love when he's talking to Horatio and he's looking into the sockets of Yorick's skull. And he has this little chuckle, just remembering something from his past with Yorick, and it's there's something very sweet about it. And so yeah, I mean, it's a really muscular Hamlet, really physical Hamlet, but there's just also really there are surprises in it, and I've seen it probably a dozen times.
I've definitely seen the Mel Gibson Hamlet more. So my pick for Hamlet is Kenneth Branagh. Although it's very close between him and Mel Gibson, because I do really love Mel Gibson's intensity. I just feel like Kenneth Branagh has such a command over that play. Like, it's almost as though those lines are just in his blood. Like, he's never reciting a line. It always feels like it's not coming from someplace that's rehearsed. It's just and because Kenneth Branagh is the only one that is the whole actual play of Hamlet. All the other three Hamlets cut out certain things, but yeah, Kenneth Branagh is the whole thing. And yes, he filmed it, so I suppose but I just don't see him spending time in between shots reviewing his lines or anything like that. He just embodies it.
I was actually thinking about that while we were watching it. I was thinking about how, like, I wonder if he gave himself multiple takes, because I kind of don't think he did. If it's a soliloquy or something like this, I think that he knows how he's going to do it.
And there might have been
he got up there and he probably just did it.
There might have been different takes to get different camera angles, but still, I don't think he would have performed it any differently.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think he was trying things on.
All right. So the next character, which is maybe even more difficult to pick than Hamlet, is Gertrude. Jason, who is the actor? I can't wait to hear this. Who is the actor that you thought best embodied Gertrude?
So this is one of the ones where I have a tie.
I'm gonna tie too.
Okay. I'm very curious to see. So my choices for Gertrude, I don't know the name off the top of my head of either of these actresses.
Okay.
So the one starring Maxine Peake as
Hamlet.
Who's that
joking?
No.
Oh my gosh!
I loved her in that.
Okay, so Barbara Martin,
okay, as Gertrude.
Is Gertrude, and then
the one from Olivier's.
Oh my God, Eileen Hurley.
Okay.
That is fascinating.
So those were my favorite Gertrudes. And here
I am so shocked.
No. So here's a little bit as to why. And I'll speak more about the was it Barbara Moore? Is that what you said her name is?
Barbara Martin.
Barbara Martin. So I think the thing I liked best about her Gertrude is that. So oftentimes when we see Hamlet, Gertrude and the relationship between Gertrude and Claudius is portrayed as there's something lascivious about it, you know. And Hamlet's even puzzled by that. Hamlet's just like, oh, why are you doing it? Just like the engines in your blood are tame now, right? Like you're in the last stages. And so Hamlet doesn't see that. So I think the play supports a different reading, and I think that she gives us a different reading of Gertrude. She almost seemed, and it's partly to do with the costuming and stuff in that production, she almost seemed like a businesswoman a little bit. And so I kind of, take on Gertrude.
We should say that the Maxine Peake production is very modern.
Yeah, there are guns in it.
Right, they're wearing modern professional business clothing, a lot of them. So, yeah.
So it felt kind of her marriage to Claudius felt sort of transactional to me, and it felt like it maybe came from more a place of loneliness than a place of passion. And I thought her line deliveries were I thought they were really, really good.
Okay.
Tremendously good. I should say that I like all of the Gertrudes. Okay. And then the actress from Olivier's version, I don't think I'd ever seen her in anything
No,
before.
Eileen Hurley. She's
Yeah.
very beautiful.
And it should be noted, she's playing Hamlet's mom, and she was 11 years younger than Olivier playing when she played Gertrude. But I just thought, again, there was something really wonderful about her. And one of the scenes we're going to talk about is the scene in the bedroom where Polonius is killed. I thought she was spectacular in that scene. And actually the only thing I didn't like about her performance is the very end when she dies, and she just kind of goes, ah. I mean, it was kind of a stage,
kind of hackneyed,
kind of a stage death kind of thing, but I thought she was every bit the match of Laurence Olivier.
Wow. Glenn Close and Julie Christie, I thought, were just amazing.
We covered all of them.
There is this, and I know you were talking about this, like, lascivious, what is it?
Lascivious, yeah.
Lasciviousness about, Gertrude's marriage to Claudius. I felt like Glenn Close, she's acting like a young girl. It's almost like this marriage to Claudius has kind of renewed her in some ways, and I don't know. I just thought, I thought she played it really well. I thought, again, one of the scenes that we're going to talk about later, she was great in. And I also thought there were moments of just real subtlety and nuance in Julie Christie's performance. I thought she was majestic, and I felt like her love for Hamlet, as well as Glenn Close, I felt it was it was just real to me. Yeah. So
I thought Julie Christie did. So Gertrude, the character, has one of my favorite speeches, and it's just after Ophelia has died, and it's the speech describing Ophelia's death, really, and I thought Julie Christie, of the four actresses, Julie Christie maybe did the best with that speech. And actually I thought that the woman from the Maxine Peake, Barbara Martin did really great with
what
that too.
Shocks me so much about your decision is I thought Barbara Martin's performance was terrible. I thought it was one of the worst performances in that production. She felt so wooden to me, and I just did not.
Great.
I did not feel that. There were other performances in that production that I really liked, including Maxine Peake. I mean, it was fascinating to see a female Hamlet.
All right, so since we've already talked about Hamlet, and you just brought up Maxine Peake, I did not like her at all.
Oh, okay.
As Hamlet at all. I have never heard or seen an actor who, for whatever reason, was in their performance was so obsessed with enunciating everything. My sensitivity to the enunciation could come from the fact that I work in radio and I deal sometimes with voice talent who over enunciate things, and it sounds... They're like, I want to be clear on the radio. Well, your job is to sound conversational. It's distracting. There were moments in her performance that I liked, but on the whole, man, I thought she was... And that was very interesting for me. The idea of, I have now seen someone perform the role of Hamlet who I feel like didn't do a good job.
And see, do you know what? And this is going to sound totally sacrilegious, but I actually thought Laurence Olivier was... the weakest of the three Hamlets that we saw,
man.
Which I know, and I feel I shouldn't be saying that,
I don't
right?
know if that's sacrilegious.
I should be struck by lightning
just
right
insane,
now.
Maybe.
But anyway, okay, all right. Let's Gertrude, we're on completely.
Who won an Oscar? As best actor.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, all right. Anyway, all right. So the next character is Polonius.
All right, Polonius.
I have very strong feelings about this one.
Okay. My favorite Polonius, by far, is Ian Holm in the Franco Zeffirelli.
Oh, God.
The Franco Zeffirelli film.
Okay.
So here's the thing I found really interesting about all of the Poloniuses. Is they all so the first one the actress who played it was framed as Polonia.
Right. Gillian Bavon.
Yeah, so she leaned really heavily into the comedy or the possibilities of comedy in the role of Polonius, and then we had Ian Holm who was more kind of he was more just he just seemed not terribly bright. He seemed like he thought he was brighter than he really was. And then the Polonius in Olivier's, he was just really old.
Felix.
Yeah, just an old,
Ulmer?
stern father
I'm not
figure.
sure
And then the guy in Brandis Hamlet was
Richard Briers.
yeah, so he played it just a bit differently as well, and I really liked Ian Holm. I mean, he's just an actor. He's just an actor that I have a soft spot for anyway. I mean, going all the way back to Chariots of Fire. Part of the reason why I liked him so much in this is because it was the second one that we watched, and the first one we watched, the actress who played Polonia, I thought was terrible.
God.
I thought she was terrible. Really, really terrible. A terrible performance, and also some of the scenes that she had with Maxine Peake as Hamlet, because they were leaning so heavily into comedic possibility. I thought some of the scenes were really off.
So my turn.
Okay.
So I thought that changing Polonius to Polonia, I thought Gillian Bavon's performance was, I thought it was the one performance of all the 4 Hamlets that we watched that I really felt like I saw that character completely differently for the first time. So many of those lines seem to come from a nagging mother, an overprotective mother, and there's a scene in where Polonius is giving her blessing or his blessing to Laertes.
That's the one part that was good.
And instead of her, the other scenes, it's like Polonius kisses his son, and that's what his blessing is. And she's holding out a credit card, and there's just something about and again, the Maxine Peake one is the one we saw first. Mm-hmm. So this is the first one we watched of the 4, and for me, none of the other actors, I did not feel that sort of freshness or just cleverness. And yes, she did lean heavily into the comedic side of it.
Yeah, it's a bad choice.
I don't think it was. That Hamlet needs a little bit of levity, right? It's a tragedy. It has
a little bit of levity without leaning into the comedy. We can laugh at Polonius because he's a bit of a fool. He doesn't need to make the actor or actress playing the part doesn't need to make the lines jokes, and she made them jokes.
I'm just saying that I felt like she was the one who of all of them transformed that character into something I felt like I had never seen that element of Polonius before.
So the thing that I loved in that scene that you were talking about, when she's giving the advice and the blessing or whatever to Laertes, is when she's imparting to Laertes these things. Laertes is speaking them, is anticipating them, and saying them with her at the same time, as though he's heard them a million times.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a brilliant choice.
Okay.
So.
All right. The next character is Ophelia.
All right, so
Here we go.
This game was a surprise to me. My favorite Ophelia was the actress in the Maxine Peake.
Oh my God, Jason! How are we married? Okay, that's Katie West.
Yeah, Katie West.
I can't believe
She's my favorite of the Ophelias. From her first lines, I thought she was fantastic. And I really loved how she, especially once Laertes was gone, and how she responded to her mom. And she seemed just really tired of listening to her mom. She wasn't sort of cowed. She seemed really frustrated with her mother. And that, yeah, that seemed believable as this young woman. And but I also really, a couple of things. So and some of that again has to do with costuming. The costumes that she wore, like the main costume that she wore, she felt to me a bit like, she looked a bit like a character from like Rebel Without a Cause or something like that. Like the nice girl that the James Dean character would be interested in. And
it's a sleeveless purple dress with purple and white stripes.
And like there was something.
She has a sweater, a little sweater.
So it felt very 50s, and she seemed like a girl who would be easily kind of victimized or taken advantage of by someone who was a bit rough. And so that just made sense to me. And yeah, and then the scene where she comes out and she's, her cheese is slid off her cracker, and she's just not all there anymore. And when she just starts disrobing in front of everyone, I thought there was something really striking about that.
Is
there was
that
something.
Why you liked her performance? Because she's in her underwear.
She didn't get naked or anything.
She did not.
But it felt very, very vulnerable to me, and it felt very brave. For an actress to do that.
Yeah, acting decision for sure.
But I thought she was fantastic.
I thought she was the worst Ophelia of the four that we saw. She
was great.
I was just not.
I can't believe that.
I just again I felt the same way about I just.
Who was you? Who?
Okay, so
Don't say. Don't say. What? Who is it? Who is it?
Well, I like the other three actresses who played Ophelia are Helena Bonham Carter in the Franco Zeffirelli one, Jean Simmons in the Laurence Olivier one, and Kate Winslet in the Kenneth Branagh one. And I think all three of those actresses are tremendous. But I actually really liked Jean Simmons.
Oh my God, she was your favorite Ophelia?
Well, I'm kind of in a three-way tie there. When Ophelia is going crazy, she's singing these songs, and they try to do it in the other versions, and but Jean Simmons can actually sing.
And that's the only thing she does well in that movie.
No!
Sing those songs.
And when I don't know, it looks like she was part of a tumbleweed or something, and she says it's rosemary, and for remembrance. And it was interesting to see all four actresses, the plants that they gave to people were different. They gave them to different characters. They did not always give, and I think that really shows, how little direction, how there's no stage direction in most of Shakespeare at all. And so Ophelia, whoever's playing Ophelia, can make all these decisions about who gets what flower. And Jean Simmons takes the, rosemary that's not rosemary and puts it on the throne. And she says, this is for remembrance.
And we see it there at the end.
Yes, it's still there at the end, which seems a little strange to me. But anyway, it's still there at the end. Honestly, it's Ophelia's death scene that really, I thought the Laurence Olivier version brought it to life more. Kate Winslet, we just see her underwater. That's it. Helena Bonham Carter does have her dress kind of, because you can do that in film, which you can't do.
No. Helena Bonham Carter, we see her running kind of toward the stream, and then we see the stream, and that's it.
Oh, I was sure that we saw her with her dress. And it's from a distance, but her dress is
maybe
lifting up to the top of the water or whatever. now, in the Maxine Peake, the modern, the 2015 version, when Ophelia dies, it's just her dress. You know, they just describe it, right? And then when it's her grave, it's her dress that they're burying, and it's surrounded by what looks like, I don't know, 4 months of dirty clothes, dirty laundry. It's just anyway. So there's nothing. Again, and I do feel like the 2015 version is a very stripped down version of Hamlet. I mean, it's not cut as much as Franco Zeffirelli's, but I think part of it is that it is kind of, you realize how little you need to actually do Hamlet on the stage. I mean, lots of times on the stage, the only thing on there is two chairs. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but okay, all right.
Right, so I just want to say one more thing about
Okay.
Ophelia, right?
Okay.
In the Zeffirelli film with Helena Bonham Carter,
Yeah.
one thing I noticed, or consciously thought about this time around, is that scene where Ophelia is fussing with the flowers, fussing with the imaginary flowers. She's sitting on Gertrude's throne. She's sitting on the queen's throne.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I thought that was just a beautiful shorthand, a beautiful way of letting us know that if
She
circumstances
could have
had been different,
Yeah.
as they should have been, that she likely would have been queen to Hamlet's king. Because Hamlet, you know, when Claudius tells Hamlet that he's closest to the throne, and I was like, yeah, he was closest to the throne before too, man. But yeah, so if circumstances had been different, she would have been. So it's like the ghost of what might have been in that scene,
Okay.
which I thought was powerful. Anyway,
All right, the last character that we're going to discuss, and then we're going to talk about 3 different scenes. So the last character is Horatio, Hamlet's best friend.
all right, my favorite Horatio,
Okay.
and here's another one. So
Oh.
I thought all 4 of the actors did a really great job.
I felt like
with
some of them
Horatio.
were given more to work with than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite of the Horatios is, again, from Franco Zeffirelli, Stephen Delane.
Is that true, or is it just because you really like Stephen Delane?
Well, I really like Stephen Delane, right, from Welcome to Sarajevo. He was Stannis Baratheon in Game of Thrones. I thought he was wonderful as Horatio, and one of my favorite moments in the Zeffirelli film, and it's one of my favorite moments actually from Helena Bonham Carter in that film too, is she gets outside the castle and she's running kind of alongside the castle and she's just screaming and crying, and she's, you know, up against the wall, and Horatio like goes up behind her and sort of takes her shoulders and comforts her, and Stephen, there's just something about Stephen Delane's presence. I just thought he was terrific in it.
And I agree with you. I think all 4 did a good job. Again, some of them were given more to work with. The one that, and the one I'm gonna go with, here we go. See if you freak out about this.
I am freaking out. I like them all.
His name is Thomas Arnold, and he played Horatio in the 2015 version with Maxine Peake.
He was really good, and I'll tell you why. But I'll wait.
Let me say
say your piece. Yeah.
So I genuinely believed that he was best friends with Hamlet. I almost felt like in casting the show, they said to Maxine Peake, "Who's your best male friend and that can act? Like, let's cast him," because I just really felt such a connection to them, even though again, like it can be made a bigger or smaller role. I also thought Nicholas Farrell in the Kenneth Branagh version was was excellent, but and he's given the whole play, right? So he has a much bigger part than the other 3 do. But I really, there was just something, you know, there's a hug, and it's very different when you're talking about a female Hamlet. When they hug each other, it just exuded friendship. There was nothing sexual about it. There was nothing, it didn't feel feminine or masculine. It felt like 2 friends hugging each other. You know, I just really, it just came across to me. So
So part of what I liked about that guy who played Horatio in the Maxine Peake version was that his acting was the opposite of Maxine Peake's. It was so natural.
Put
There
your
was
hands
something
next to my
sorry.
face.
There was just something incredibly natural about it, and it was made to feel more natural by the fact that hers was so, so heavily enunciated, and and his performance made hers seem weaker to me, and hers made his seem better.
Huh. That's interesting.
But yeah, I thought he was wonderful too. Horatio himself as a character is extraordinarily kind. And all four of these actors who play him, there's something in their faces that is really gentle and really trusting.
Right.
And
the rest of the characters in the play all seem to know what a good guy Horatio is.
Yeah.
They're always telling him. It's really struck me when we were watching the Kenneth Branagh one yesterday, that how many different characters in the play are asking Horatio to keep watch over Ophelia, to keep watch over Hamlet, all this kind of stuff. Like everybody knows he's so good. I also think though, like sometimes it's much easier to play a bad character or maybe a mad character rather than someone who's just good.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think all four of them did an excellent job at exuding this kind of goodness and goodwill.
Yeah.
Wanting the best outcome in the worst kind of circumstances. Yeah. So the first scene we want to discuss is Hamlet's meeting with the ghost of his father.
Yes.
And which one is the best one and why?
Okay. I thought all four of the films actually did this really well, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. This was the first time I'd ever seen the Olivier version, and I thought that scene, the meeting of the ghost in the Olivier version, I thought it was genuinely scary. It was creepy.
It was.
It was really, really creepy. Overall, my favorite of the scenes is in the Zeffirelli film with Paul Scofield. And I love that it's up on the ramparts of the castle. Mm-hmm. It feels, Paul Scofield is shot in such a way with the makeup and from a distance, it feels genuinely spectral to me. Mm-hmm. He seems like he's not quite human anymore. Mm-hmm. He also, the sagging of Paul Scofield's face. Really just communicates the suffering and the pain and the loss and but even just like lines when they're talking about like the morning is coming, like you can feel it up on the ramparts. I mean you can, and then when the ghost is gone and Hamlet goes in and finds his friends, you're like, man, this is a natural light. Like they really shot this at dawn. You can feel it. You can tell. So I love how spectral that felt. But I will say, in the Maxine Peake version, there were two things I loved about that scene. So he doesn't really look spectral. I mean, he looks just like the regular actor, and it's the actor who plays Claudius in that film. He plays both parts.
And his name is John Shrapnel.
Yes, but the thing that they do to communicate him being kind of from another dimension is they have all of these light bulbs way above the stage.
Right.
And they lower them, they just lower the cords down so the light bulbs are hanging 2 feet off the stage, something like this. And so you get the feeling that it's a dimension that has come down on.
Or the there's a question of like coming down and going up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked that one. The other one that
Well, I was just going to say, and then the other thing I loved, it actually moved me to tears, which I was not expecting, was when the ghost is telling Hamlet about how he was killed before he could confess. He was killed with all of his imperfections on his head, et cetera, and the actor playing him kind of breaks down in that moment, and Maxine Peake as Hamlet goes over to him and embraces him. And I thought there was something so unexpected and so incredibly powerful about someone from the physical world embracing someone from the spectral world in their suffering. I just thought that was really, really powerful, really moving. So anyway.
Okay. My favorite version, I'll be brief because I think you have already touched on a lot of it, but is the Laurence Olivier one. I felt that one was actually scary. There are times where you can't tell whether you're looking at the visor and there's just like this blank spot where the eyes are supposed to be, or whether you're looking at his face. I really did not like Kenneth Branagh's interpretation of the scene with the ghost. I hated the earthquake and the steam coming up from the ground and everything, and yeah, I thought that was I didn't like that at all. I really liked I liked the one, the Franco Zeffirelli one. I mean, it's in a castle for like it's the only one that genuinely feels like you're in a castle, and so of course Hamlet can run up these stone stairs and be at the top and that sort of thing. So anyway, but so I was, it's the only one that genuinely scared me would be the one from Laurence Olivier. So okay. You ready to talk about the second scene? Okay. So the second scene is Hamlet in his mother's bedroom, and he doesn't know who's hidden behind, a rug or a carpet or whatever, something like that, and kills Polonius.
Yeah. So my favorite version of that scene was in the Olivier film. And I've already talked about it a little bit. I just thought Gertrude was tremendously good in that scene. But I also loved the camera work in that scene when the ghost reappears to Hamlet. And we, and Gertrude's next to Hamlet, and it's almost, I don't remember if it's a true point of view shot, but we see the ghost essentially from Hamlet's point of view. And then we see, and then the camera move to Gertrude, and then it moves back to the same shot, and the ghost is gone. But the camera work in that I just thought was really, really terrific, and it really just showed Olivier the fact, because Olivier directed as well. Olivier had a really strong cinematic grasp of what to do with the play and how to use the tools of cinema with the camera work, et cetera, to communicate the different experiences of the characters in the same moment. Mm-hmm. I thought that was brilliant, just brilliant.
I really liked Mel Gibson and Glenn Close, and I know that's going to be controversial or whatever about that, because people don't like how close in age Mel Gibson and Glenn Close were to each other. I just felt like genuine terror again. Like there's so much screaming from both of them, at different points, and it just felt like, I feel like the Franco Zeffirelli one, and again this is why it was just almost my favorite choice, is that it just ramps up in intensity throughout the whole thing. So
that scene in the Zeffirelli one, it just feels very frenzied to me. It feels kind of electrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those moments, Kelly calls them like Jason rising up out of his chair moments. In a movie theater, I would do that. I would start levitating. And that scene is one of those moments. It's really brilliantly done.
The final scene of Hamlet. So this is where Hamlet and Laertes are battling, and Hamlet is unaware that Laertes has a blade that's got poison on it.
Yeah, unbaited and envenomed.
Yes, thank you, and also that the king has poisoned a drink, or poisons a drink in the midst of it, in the hopes of Hamlet drinking it, and then okay, so which one of those four is your favorite? And I'm not totally sure I know.
If I was forced to choose, I would probably say the Olivier one. for a few different reasons. One of which I think you're gonna talk about. The fencing of those actors had done a lot of fencing, and it was clear.
Jason,
And I mean,
Jason could not help himself. We were trying not to say anything to each other, and Jason's like, they know how to.
Yeah,
fence.
the swordplay was really terrific, but I also just love that moment. And again, I think you're going to talk about this too, or wanted to mention this as well. So I'm sorry if I'm preempting you.
You are preempting me, but that's okay.
But I love Olivier's decision and the actress playing Gertrude's decision so when Claudius puts the jewel in the cup to give to Hamlet, nothing has changed, right? I mean, the dialogue's not changed. It's not there in the dialogue at all. That scene is traditionally played when Gertrude takes a drink of it, and Claudius warns her off of it, and she says, I pray you let me drink, man. And she takes a drink, and then she dies. It's played as misfortune. She had no idea.
Right.
But in Olivier's, I love the fact that the actress playing Gertrude, she gives the cup a look. And
she knows.
She seems to know. She knows what Hamlet has told her about what has happened. We don't know to what extent she believes him, but Claudius putting the jewel in the cup is enough of a thing to make her suspect her son was right. And she clearly, just from her look, she clearly understands that the cup probably has poison in it. And so her decision to drink from the cup it's two things. It's no longer an act of misfortune. It's an act of suicide, and it's a way of warning her son, who has yet to be injured or has yet to drink from the cup, that his life is at risk in that moment. And I thought that was brilliant.
But it's almost like when Hamlet wants to see his uncle's reaction and his mother's reaction to the players, right? When they sort of reenact Hamlet's father's death. And this time it's her saying, I'm going to drink from this cup and see what my husband's reaction is. And of course, he tries to stop her. Mm-hmm. And then she knows, but it's almost at that point, she's trying to save her son, and she just can't believe that she's married to the man who killed her.
Yeah, she doesn't want to live anymore.
Right.
Yeah, she doesn't want that situation anymore.
She's done. And I felt like there was a touch, like there was a tiny bit of that in the Kenneth Branagh one with Julie Christie. I felt like there was a moment where she was just kind of like, no, I'm gonna, she looks at him and is sort of, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna take a drink.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Well, I actually felt a different scene that communicated that same thing. Julie Christie kind of having enough of Claudius.
Whoa, right, when he says, "Follow me."
Yeah, when
she
gives the information, when she tells the story about Ophelia's death, and then Laertes, leaves, and Claudius makes it all about him somehow.
Right.
He's like, oh, you have no idea how much work I had to do to calm him down. And now he's all upset again, and he wants her to kind of come with him or whatever, and she's clearly just mortified by the fact that he turned that situation around and made it about his own, now I'm going to have to go work on Laertes some more.
Great Derek Jacobi in that part, yeah. But anyway, so for me, the idea that Gertrude recognizes, and you did kind of say everything I was going to say, so but yeah, it's okay. Yeah, definitely the Laurence Olivier one, and again, I think it's probably Laurence Olivier's interpretation, right? It's his twist and spin on it, but the fact that she there's a clear shot of her just staring at the cup and understanding, wanting to see how her husband's going to react when she takes that drink. And there's less of that in the other three. But I honestly, that end scene, the fence scene, I think all four productions did a good job with the fight, And
yeah, I suppose so.
you know,
Brandon's, I feel like, kind of goes off the rails at times. It just becomes
it just
too.
a little,
It just becomes too much.
The part where he throws the sword, I was just, that was kind of, I thought that was a little far fetched, a little too much. But let's also address the fact that Brenna's version is the only one that talks about Fortinbras.
Yeah.
It's the only one.
Yeah.
The Olivier version also, in addition to cutting out Fortinbras completely, also cuts out Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting as well. You can see there's all these minor characters that there could, you almost want another Shakespeare play about their life and what happened to them. But Fortinbras being in that last one, and storming the castle, and I did talk to Jason about this because I just couldn't keep it in any longer. But the idea that that they had been, the court of Denmark has been so consumed with its own self, its own conspiracies, that it has lost sight of the fact that it's about to be attacked and taken over. And it's only Horatio who's left really to tell the full story of what has happened in this play and to Fortinbras.
Well, and what I found interesting, I've always thought that the Fortinbras stuff is what could most easily and maybe should be cut from a production of Hamlet. But what I liked about it, what I understood about it after watching 3 versions without Fortinbras, and then all of a sudden here's Fortinbras, is that I thought, because of what has happened, right? Claudius is dead and Hamlet is dead, and so I mean, presumably there's not a nephew running around anywhere, right? So,
not that we know of.
So there's the line of succession is gone, like it's completely dissolved, and so having Fortinbras come in there at the end and having that have. It's initiated from the beginning of the play before Hamlet even knows his father was murdered. Fortinbras is on the move. I was telling Kelly that it felt a little bit like, the sense of order being restored was kind of preordained, right? Like it's something that, I felt like that whatever happens to, to a body politic, whatever happens to a country, to the ruling, person or persons, that there's always going to be something. It may not be good, but there's always going to be some kind of system of order that will take its place. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's a moral system is beside the point. Yeah. But there's always something waiting in the wings. I had one more thing to mention before we knock off.
Okay.
So, because so many people, oftentimes it's just say, "Oh, Mel Gibson's not a very good Hamlet." There was one line that I wanted to talk about just for a second. The difference between Mel Gibson's performance of this line, reading of this line, and Olivier's. And it's at the end of the words scene with Polonius. And Polonius is leaving, and Hamlet says something to them, you cannot take anything from me that I would not more willing part with all. Or so I don't remember exactly.
Right, you cannot take leave.
Yeah, uh-huh. And then he says, "Accept my life." Mm-hmm. And he repeats it 3 times. Okay, and when Olivier does it, and there's no shade on Olivier, man. He's Laurence Olivier, right? I mean, he's a great actor. He knew Shakespeare better than anybody. But when he repeats that line, "Accept my life," and then "Accept my life," "Accept my life," it's like he's repeating it because it's 3 times in the play, and I've got to say it 3 times. But when Mel Gibson says it, he says, "Accept my life," and then Polonius, starts leaving or whatever, and then when he repeats it the first time. So when he says it the second time, he raises his voice. Mm-hmm. It's like, "Oh, maybe you didn't hear me. Accept my life." And then the third time Polonius is gone, and he looks at the book in his hands, and then he's saying it to himself. Yeah. And it's quiet, and he says, "Accept my life." And it's introspective in that moment. So he's telling Polonius something, and then he's raising his voice to make sure Polonius got the point, and then he's repeating it a third time. Himself. in this introspective Hamlet-y kind of way, and then he drops the book in, and it's just beautiful. Mel Gibson is so good in that role.
Yeah, and I think for me the line that really defines Mel Gibson's performance as Hamlet is, "Oh, now that I could drink hot blood," you know, and
Hot blood.
It's so good. It's so good, and it makes you feel like, okay, is he saying a deer? Is he saying the heart? Because it all sounds. It sounds, or is it hot? Right, like that he's.
Is it fresh?
Yeah, and I think crazy people are the best, maybe at playing crazy people, and so I think that's part of Mel Gibson's performance is that, you know, there's something he's a little unhinged, and more so recently rather than when this came out in 1990, but. Yeah, I do think that his performance is unappreciated maybe. But okay, so we wanted to hear. I read somewhere that there are 45 film adaptations of Hamlet. So we want to know what you think is the best version of Hamlet. What is one that we should watch that we didn't? Which we commit another 4 hours to see. And what do you think of our casting choices? Who do you cast as the best for these parts? So please let me know down in the comments section. Thank you so much, Jason, for agreeing to watch 4 Hamlet adaptations.
It was fun.
And so let us know what you think down in the comments section below. As always, if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, you can leave an emoji or maybe a skull for Alas Poor Yorick. Or you can give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much. BookTube, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and we'll be back soon with more Shaketember videos.
That's right.
Bye.